Hey, good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday night. It is R3, and actually, this is our last R3 for this season. We're going to be wrapping it up today. That's why we called it the R3 wrap up. Good evening, Rod. How are you?
Good evening. I'm good. How are you? Are
Doing
you
well, and
are you seriously excited to be here?
I'm super seriously, amazingly excited to be here. And you know what really excited for? Do you want to know?
Summer?
Yes.
Yes,
In two
warm.
days, it's your birthday.
Well, yeah, 34
Hey,
again. Yes.
34 again. How do you keep living the same year over and over again? It's like Groundhog Year.
Yes, yes. Soon Sam will catch up to me, but yeah.
Wow. How old is Sam?
I believe he's 31.
No way. Wow. Your kids are getting old. Well,
Yes.
happy early birthday because Sunday
Thank
will be
you.
happy belated birthday. You fall right in between. So that's awesome. And we got some people joining us. Want to say hello to Donna Penji and Ferdinand's on. Hello, Ferdinand. And it's great to see you guys on. And I know it's a beautiful day outside. It's fairly cool still, which is nice. It's not the incredible heat that we have. So
Yeah, absolutely. Loving that.
yeah, I know. I like the heat, but I don't mind the cool evenings either. So Rod, we've been doing R3 now. I didn't go back and look, but I would imagine it started, I think, somewhere back in February, March. So we've been doing this for quite some time, and you've been on and off with us at different times. So it's been great to have you as kind of a co-host. Has there been a favorite moment for you in the last few months before we jump into tonight's topic?
Well, I think there's probably been a couple of them, and certainly I loved having when you had Erica on, and it's just so real, and
Yeah, it was great.
really enjoyed that. It's always to me her humility. I mean, that girl's awesome, and
Mhm.
she really is, and she's got a real message to be able to share and what she has walked through in her life, and so there's wisdom there that we were able to glean from, and so that's awesome. But
Yeah.
and there's been some other times too, like, so one of the phrases, and it's just funny how in our society right now, in our world, we are, we love phrases, right? So when Brandy was on and she said, "I can do hard things," that
Right.
just seemed to really stick,
Yeah.
and it's something that Karen and I wrote down, and it doesn't mean we can do them well yet, but we can do hard things. We can begin the process, and for you, what was something that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, I think every one of them I was able to pull great nuggets from because each person brought a unique message. We had Joy on and Ryan, we had Rob and Phyllis, and I did like Erica. One of the
That's
things I
right.
wanted to say with Erica last week is that a lot of times she's married to a very loud and outgoing man. And so I
Quiet and
think a lot of
shy
times
guy, isn't he? He's the quiet, shy.
no, not at
No,
all. And a
okay.
lot of times, you can kind of hide behind that. And so it was great to have some of the church family that have maybe not seen her speak and that have a chance to see. And Brandy, of course, she was on twice. We did the exercise the one time, and we're talking about sleep because both of us have had sleep struggles. And so I just really love how everybody brought unique set of ideas and things that they've learned on their journey.
So
And
remind us in this, like, before we get going into the wrap up and whatnot, remind us for why we started this. Why do you think it's important for us to do our three?
It's interesting. I remember going for a walk one day and just thinking about, here we are in COVID, and as a church, we're always trying to make sure people are filling themselves spiritually and staying spiritually strong. But the reality that I was thinking of when I was on this walk is how many things like, and honestly, through every one of the segments, there was those aha moments. And we had Linda on another one, where just you begin
That's
to
right.
realize we called it R3, body, soul, spirit. R3 was actually restore, renew, rebuild. But it's this understanding that we are so intricately, there we go, connected, and that everything works with the other part of our body. It's actually a great reminder of the body of Christ. I think we sometimes forget how important every part is, and that if we're not careful, we can lean so heavily on one side and miss two other portions of our body, our body, our spirit, our soul, and we could be unbalanced and thinking that I remember I never had a chance well, one of the challenges, we can't play the video. Maybe I'll post it one day, but I remember watching this gentleman, and he actually made a contraption, and he had three containers, and he was trying to fill up the spirit. And when he filled up the spirit container, thinking it was full, but when they were all connected, and when he released the valve, because of what would the word be? Water will balance out. It won't just stay in one container. So when he opened up the valve, they actually all went to the other containers, but then he didn't have much in all of them.
Mm.
And so you think you could fill up the spirit to fill the body, soul, and body and soul. And in the end, you're actually always depleted because you got to be filling each one of them up. And so I think throughout this whole process, just the reminder, even for myself, to go, you can't just focus just on one. You could have really in shape body and be depleting your soul and spirit, or have a strong spirit and depleting your body and soul. And so I think it's been powerful. I've taken a lot from it. I've gleaned every time.
Yeah, I think your word is a good word there. We're reminders, because I think that's what you're sometimes I need them anyways to remember. That we're talked about who's been on the show, that when Ryan was on, and just sharing about joy and about really this new life that he has begun to experience and walk into, and then Linda, the wisdom that she has of what she's walked through, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really just looking at one of the things that we as Christians sometimes struggle with is talking about mental health,
Yeah.
right?
Such a
And
taboo. It's not as taboo, but it
yeah,
certainly has a negative stimulus to a
y-
stimulus.
yeah, you got the words going on tonight, boy.
It's gonna be a fun night tonight. Yeah,
Yeah, but it is something where it's not as much of a taboo as it used to be in there, and I think that, and it's not something that we want to just accept. We want to see healing come in those
right.
areas, but at the same time, it doesn't devalue the fact, because it would give the connotation that if you shared that you were struggling with some area of mental health, well, then that meant that you probably weren't spiritually doing what you're supposed to be doing. And yet what we have learned in this process, and reminded ourselves, maybe a better way to put it, is that we could be spiritually strong and still yet have struggles in other areas, and therefore we
Right.
need to focus on. I mean, I think our word that we kind of somewhat begin to adopt as well was whole, right? And that
Sure.
that we
Yeah.
want to see our whole being healed, and walk into healing in every area. And so for me, it's been a lot of going, wow, yeah, okay, I need to kind of work on that one.
With the whole, we're not going to go to mental illness or
Mental
wow,
health.
mental
Yeah.
health. Thank you. That's more common word today, and I actually think that could really help isolate, because I think there's mental illness, and I think that is you can have it generationally, you can have it spiritually. There's a lot of dynamics, and then there's mental health, and I think actually mental health is becoming more and more in the forefront, because we're going to talk a little bit about this today, that we're living in such a hectic, fast-paced. Actually, I was reading an article today, really interesting. I could have done a whole R3 on it, but it was talking about bandwidth and how much today we have. We understand bandwidth when it comes to the internet, how much bandwidth you're getting. But the reality is, they said we have more bandwidth, more information, more options, more everything coming at us than we ever have had. And so that can actually cause mental health issues just alone in that, and we've seen, there's a lot of people that have never had mental health issues until COVID. And all of a sudden they found themselves isolated. They found themselves living the same day over and over again. And, you think, well, I never deal with mental health until you deal with mental health. It's
Right.
just, it can creep up on you so quickly. And I think in some ways it's been a good thing, in the sense that I think it's unraveling a little bit, that we're beginning to go, you know what, we probably have to change our lifestyle a little bit if we're going to cope in a society like we have today.
Yeah, it as well puts the responsibility on ourselves, not in a negative way, to say to for shame and guilt, right? Because that's what we want to push
Absolutely, yeah,
away, right? But it does take responsibility upon ourselves to say, you know what, I can't just wish this away. And I do believe that I have experienced, like, so for me with mental health, I've had people pray for me and give me, I would call them kickstarters, where if I was struggling with something, that it sort of jarred me in the right direction, and even had that sense of freedom for the moments. But if I didn't choose now, I have to change a few things in my life. I have to figure out what,
right,
and we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight, but I got to figure out what's essential and
yeah,
what is important and what's not important, because when I'm unable to make those decisions, I find that my mental health goes down the tubes, because part of it is I'm trying to please everyone.
yeah. And that's what we're going to kind of kick off tonight and conclude with our three. And we're going to talk about essentialism. We covered it one day, you and I actually. We talked about margins and boundaries, and essentialism came up that day. And essentialism, I don't know if you read the whole book. It's a book that 4 years ago really began to reshape my thoughts. That's actually a book that I read when I was having kind of my mental health for the first time I'd ever just had anything like that, with anxiety. And I honestly don't even know where I got the book from. It I don't even know how. I just ended up with this book, and maybe it caught my attention with what I was going through, but it began to make me realize that I was, as much as I thought I was deciding and making decisions of where I wanted to go in life. After I read the book, I realized I was living more out of default than I was out of a plan. And yet I would have said I planned a lot, but I think as a pastor, and you may, probably could understand this, it's easy to say yes all the time because we want to help people. And I began to realize that I was not living by design. I was living by anything that came up, and I was just trying to fit everything into 24 hours. And you can't, it's in the day that we live in, you cannot accomplish everything. It's impossible.
Right. Right.
And from the things that we have to do for work, the emails that we get, like if you think our life now to where it was 40 years ago, we never had, it started with emails. We never had this constant flow of emails and letters. And well, now we have instant text messaging, we have social media, we have so many things to look at, to read, to touch base with people. Um, we're connecting with people on an instant level, where before, you go way back and it was a letter. You may have to wait 4 weeks to get your letter, your response. Well, now it's instantaneous.
Right.
Um, and a lot of it has made our life better, but a lot of it has also caused us to have to make or maybe we don't realize we have to make choices, and we have to make powerful choices. But if we don't realize that, we could just literally be going through this. Well, let me give you an example. Um, have you ever had a to-do list, and you get to work and you're set to do your to-do list, and by 5 o'clock, your to-do list is actually longer than when it started,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
You have more to do than when you started in that day, or you have a weekend plan, and before you know it, you don't get to anything that you wanted to get to because all these other things come in, and you don't finish, you don't accomplish, you don't do what you want to do.
Right. For me, probably, I mean, my time is going by, and I'm talking about maybe 25 years ago, maybe now, or somewhere in there. But, and I still am working on it. And this is a journey. But I was letting life move me, and instead of moving my life.
Yeah,
And that is the sense of, with the power of the Holy Spirit guiding us and directing us, but together with Holy Spirit, we're shaping our lives, where so often, you'd go from one crisis to the next, or one good thing to the next, right? It
yeah,
wasn't necessarily always crisis, but it was many times need, right? Need that shaped what you were going to do.
yeah,
And if you had to sit there and say, I'm sorry, but that need can't shift what I'm trying to accomplish, because before you know it, you're like, boy, I've maybe helped a lot of needs, but I really haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
with where I feel like even the Lord or Holy Spirit is wanting me to do with my life. And again, it's not a matter that we can't, I mean, our lives are about helping people. You understand what I'm saying? It's not
Yeah, absolutely.
that is absolutely that is who I am. I mean, if I can't help people, then what in the world am I doing?
Yeah.
Especially in the ministry. But there was this sense of, it's not that you didn't plan, but you reacted rather than plan. Does that make
Respond.
sense to you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So often we react instead of responding. I heard this today and I don't know the gentleman. I don't know how long ago, but he had given $1 billion to an organization. I think it was to help poverty. And in the end, he wished he could have done so much more. And everybody's like, you just gave $1 billion. But it reminded him of the fact that, you can't meet everybody's need. Here's $1 billion. Like, if I could give $1 million, that'd be incredible. But it's the reality that you could give $1 billion to help fight poverty and homelessness, but there's a lot of needs out there. And if we're not careful, we could be sucked into every need. And I felt it. I felt, man, my heart wants to try to meet everybody's need, but I can't be the Holy Spirit. I can't be God. And I've lived in that realm. And I think that was part of why I burnt out 4 years ago, because I wanted, and I still have to watch that. I want to meet everybody's need. I want to bless everyone. I want to be a part of everybody's life. I want to be everybody's friend. And it's just not possible.
Right, right. That's that savior complex that
Yeah,
we have one savior, and it ain't
that's
us,
right.
you know.
Absolutely. And I want to start with this essentialism idea. I want to read this quote. Um, and this is from Peter Drucker. He's actually a time management guy. And I thought I sent this to you earlier because I think it's just an interesting, provocative thinking quote. He says, in a few hundred years, when the history of our time will be written from a long-term perspective, and this is pre-COVID, by the way, it is likely that the most important event historians will see is not technology, not the internet, not e-commerce. It's an unprecedented change in the human condition. For the first time, literally substantial and rapidly growing numbers of people have choices. For the first time, they have to manage themselves. And then he says this, and society is totally unprepared for it.
Mm,
I thought that was so interesting because, and we were talking earlier, we live in a day and age where we have more choices. You think growing up, I remember we had what, 4 or 5 major networks.
right.
You watch movies when they came. I remember looking through as a kid, looking through the TV guide, planning when the Christmas specials were going to come out, and my life would plan into that. Our kids have no clue what that even is like, because at any minute they can, and they get frustrated when they can't pull it up immediately. What do you mean Netflix? They don't even know the major news or major
Right,
TV stations anymore. They go, what do you
right.
mean Netflix and Amazon and all these different ones aren't carrying my movie? I want it now.
Yeah,
And so we have all these choices, but yet we're not, according to Peter Drucker, he was saying we're not as a society ready to have all these options in front of us. And we were talking, I was mentioning just the fact that I'm watching Downton Abbey again with my wife and Krista. And they didn't have a lot of, as servants, they didn't have a lot of choices. They got up, they served all day long, they went to bed. They knew where they were. They had one room they slept in. They weren't buying and selling houses. They just, their whole life was wrapped around this job. And it's not like that for us today. We have multiple choices every minute, every hour, every day. We have so many choices. And, if we are not disciplined and if we don't know what our purpose and our goals are, life will by default just keep directing us instead of us directing our life.
right. And actually, it's kind of for me that there could be so many different choices that you don't do anything.
Yeah.
Right, there's this stalling in there, and that is that sense of sometimes with COVID right now is that there feels like there's this stall, and I do believe that we need to start seeing ourselves making these powerful choices of what we want to see happen in our lives, because life will move on. And
Yeah.
so, you joke about the fact of your girls in there, or for yourself for TV, growing up. I mean, I'm only 6 years older than you, but I do remember the fact that, we didn't have remote controls. We had, technically it was a remote, but it was connected to the wire, which was connected to the TV.
Are you serious?
You'd push, seriously, man. And you would push these buttons along there to pick which you had to walk over to the TV to do, or you would have this box that was in front of you that had a wire that was, things are totally different and everything is changing. But I find that right now that I have so much coming at me, so much information coming at me, that I have to be decisive. I need to start making better choices of how I use my time.
Yeah. That's crazy and awesome and funny all at the same time. But yes, um, I was just thinking while you're talking, you think about emails that come through. I'm not even sure on a given day, and partly because, I have to go through my emails yet again and discontinue and disconnect to some of them. But on a given day, I'm not even sure I can read every article that's sent to me in my email box, let alone the important information that I have to go. And some of it is great information. You said it a few minutes ago. Essentialism really is this idea that you're going to do less, but you're going to do it better. That you're going to decide what is the most essential, important things to do, pick those and do them better. And,
Right.
you said the term, we want to pick those things that are good and not good. Really essentialism gets to the point where you only choose the very good, the things that will, so it's not even just the good or the very good. You're deciphering between the very, very good. And that's the thing, like I was saying with emails, there's a lot of great information. Every day there's so much information. We live in, I think they call it the second information age, because we started off with information at our fingertips and now we've accelerated that to such a level, and you can't even read it all. It's impossible to read everything that's
Right.
coming your way. And so if
Right.
we don't become deciders of what we're going to read, what we're going to do, we will actually end up with mental health problems. We will end up with marital problems. We will end up with relational problems because it's coming at us so quickly.
Mm.
I was sharing with you earlier, and I think this is a great example. It was a young man. We were discussing this, the young man that was valedictorian. And I was telling you about the video where he actually found out, it must have been probably September, that he found out he was in the running to be a valedictorian. So they had to work at it. I guess they had to achieve certain things. And he spent the whole year working hard to achieve valedictorian, and he ended up winning it. And it's interesting because during his speech, he talked about all the things that he did. And he said he realized if he could do it over again, he wouldn't choose it. And he said, because in the end, I had to say yes to valedictorian. And for some people, like you said, we were talking, you said, for some people, that's what they would choose, even in the end.
Right.
But for him, he realized he had to say no to some valuable time and relationship time and things that were really important, that in the end he would go back and say no if he could, because when he weighed the two, it wasn't worth having a 5-minute speech of fame to say no to all these important relationships. And that's really what his speech was about. He just wanted to let people know, make sure you cherish relationships.
Right.
But it's a perfect example that when we say yes to one thing, by default, we have to say no to another thing.
Anything good can become something that takes away from us. So
Sure.
for example, with me, I know that Karen and I had to recently have a good conversation about. So I'm just loving doing my woodworking, and now I've expanded from woodworking into doing other kind of more artistic type of things, and these are all good things, and they're actually really good for my mental health, right? And in there, but if I'm not careful, those good things will now take over, and I don't have the time spent with Karen or with
Yep.
Abby or with other things. And because I think that as human beings, we only have so much, and I'm not just talking about time, but so much energy,
Yeah.
right, to be able to put forth. And so even the good things then can begin to clog up really what's important to us, right?
Yeah. And even saying, with that bandwidth, you may physically have energy, but I've gone home at times and my brain, I'm just done. I can't think too deeply anymore because I've had a day where we've had to make decisions or think deeply. And then I go home and I don't have anything left for my kids. Like I don't want to really talk, and they need me to talk. They need me to help them with their homework, and you know, obviously if you're your job, you have to do that. But at other times it's other things. We've just, you know, we've like my kids, and I'm trying to teach them right now, they live in a world where there's never not some sort of information, noise, song, video playing.
Right.
They don't even know what it's like to be still. And my daughter the other day when she got in the car, she's like, Dad, you don't have music playing. I said, honey, sometimes I just like to drive with nothing. I want my brain to have a chance to either think, you know, process or not think. And that's just very foreign to them. And
Right.
that is actually a cause of concern if they don't know how to process their feelings, their emotions, and they just plug in yet again to something else.
Right. If I'm not willing to, this is just me personally, it's not necessarily about this generation or anything, but if I'm not willing to stop, and sometimes it is hard, right, to be able to do that, I can sometimes be hiding
Mm,
and hiding on all the noise.
yeah.
Right, in that sense, because if in the sense that when it's quiet, you really have to deal with the things that are essential, the things
Yeah.
that are important, the things that are, you know, you're like, you know what, Lord, we really need to deal with this. We need to really, I need to talk about this with you. And yet, if every moment of every day is filled with something, then that's not going to happen like it
Yeah.
should. But so for you, what would you consider to be something that is, because you know part of essentialism is getting rid of those things that are non-essential,
Right.
right? It is not just a choice of the good things, but it's actually having the bravery to reduce things that are non-essential. And I use the word bravery on purpose because
Sure.
I think it does take, even when everybody else would think, no, this is important, but for you, you have to say, you know what, it's that's not essential for me.
Yeah. Let me start by you know, I love the example that Greg gives. It's Greg McCowan. He, in this book, Essentialism, he describes essentialism like our closets, you know, and it's a simple example. And it's obviously more complicated, but the reality is when we go into our closets, we probably have clothes in there that we haven't worn. I know I have clothes probably that I haven't worn in a couple of years. Um, and I go through and I want to get rid of it, but I think maybe I'll wear it, but I haven't worn it in 4 years. I don't know why I think I'll wear it, and we leave it in. And so we have all this, it could be even neatly put in there, but it's cluttered in the end because we have so much. And essentialism is really going through and going, evaluating what is really important. You know, what am I going to wear? What do I need to get rid of? And then he even goes to the point of saying, you know, it's not enough to just take it out and put it on the floor and go, I'll get rid of it. Because chances are, if you don't have a plan, you're going to pick it back up and put it back on the shelf. And so he said, you have to make sure you know, okay, you know, if you have a pickup day for Salvation Army, what day is it? Are you going to bag it? You're smiling and laughing. So you got,
Yeah, because
so, you know, you got
Karen's
to
really
get it.
good at that stuff, right?
What's that?
Karen's really good at that stuff. She will just after a while she'll come in and I can see it in her eyes that, oh, we are going
Oh,
to lose some stuff today.
you know,
Right.
sometimes it's the hope of going, maybe I'll fit into that again, or maybe I'll, you know, maybe that will come back into style, or no, it's not out of style. I love that shirt. And essentialism is really the essence of just going through your life now. And one of the things he makes very clear in the book, we were just talking about this, it actually takes a lot of brain power. It takes time. It takes energy to sit down and really begin to decide what is important in my life. And I think, you know, I often quote Andy Stanley, you know, he says, direction, not good intention, leads to destination. And I think so often we have really good intentions. You know, we have a goal for our life. We want to eat healthy. We want to, you know, get closer to our kids. And we have, I'm saying that right now because I've been doing a project, and I found myself recently saying, when I'm done, you know, I will. And then I realized that if I'm not careful, I'm never done because there's always another project. And so, in essence, I'm going back to default. I am, without even realizing it, making this project more essential than my relationship with my kids.
Mhm.
Not even realizing that I'm doing that, but I am. And so, essentialism is really sitting down and making, whether it's purpose, goals, whatever, however you want to look at it, and both are needed. If you have a purpose, you need to have goals and how to get to your purpose. But then it's actually making a plan of going, okay, what am I doing in my life that is leading to this goal? And what am I doing in my life that is not leading to this goal? And anything that is not leading to where I should be going is non-essential. And he's not talking about being this so disciplined that you never do anything, but it's the big things. What's taking up your life that's keeping you from, I we all want to, right? I want to get into shape. I want to lose more weight. At this age, it's becoming more and more of a thing. And I find myself sabotaging myself. I'm like, I know I got to get up earlier if I really want to work out, if I want to go for that jog, if I want to eat healthy, I got to go and buy the right food. And I can have a lot of good intentions at times and end up not getting anywhere, getting to the exact opposite place, because the Doritos were way easier to grab, than making a really healthy salad.
Yep. Yep.
And so I had the good intention of eating healthy, but my direction led me somewhere totally different.
Yep. Well, it's like that sense of at different times in life, I've started the new year off going, I want to read the entire Bible this year, right? Straight through, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, so, let's just try this and see. And if you don't have a plan, or if you don't have, you don't actually pick up a way to do it and go through it, and it's just not going to happen. I mean, those things don't change. The things that are non-essential in our lives they're not going to just drift away. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not speaking from the one who's got all that down. It's just more the fact of knowing that even in these, this end with COVID is coming to an end now. And I'm going, okay, so you know what? I need to make sure that the way that I have been somewhat living, not wrongly, but the way that my time has been absorbed, that's got to change.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to physically do something. It's not a wishful thinking, hoping it's not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it is, again, taking that time. And I think you said it earlier, if we can fill our brains with noise,
Yeah.
and if we don't take the time to really go, and you are 6 years older, it's not huge, but it's 6 years is 6 years. And so we are in our next phase of life. We're not
Sure.
teenagers anymore. We're not young adults. We're in the end game of our careers in some ways, looking at 15 years. And if we don't sit down and choose what we want to see accomplished, we could be 5 years from retirement and in regret, going, man, I wanted to see all these things happen, but I didn't take the time to make a pathway to get there.
Right, and that's a great word, a pathway to get there, right? And I think one of the other things too for me has been the confidence to know that God's going to be with me, and there's grace going to be to accomplish. Now, grace just doesn't going to lift me up and do it for me. That's not going to happen. That'd be great. That'd be just wonderful. But grace will empower me to begin to do this. And when when we were looking at COVID and beginning and all of these things, I kept asking myself, and we'd always ask these questions in different things we do. How will you be different when all of this is done? So this is terrible stuff. Nobody likes it. There's all kinds of stuff involved with it. But how will we be different? And I remember sitting there going, I want to do something different. But you know what? It was hard. I mean, and I hate talking about it because it sounds like I'm tooting my own horn in this, but when you're talking about this cartoon that we built for the kids every week, everybody, it takes everybody about, this 3 minutes, 4 minutes, sometimes they were 5 minutes long to watch this. That took, in the beginning, it would take 2 and 3 days to create this, but it took hours to learn.
Right.
And it took a discipline to begin to do that. And I'm going to be honest with you. I thought I thought, you know what? I think I've bitten off more than I can chew. I'm not sure I can do this. And then the excuse comes, at my age, and I mean, some of us that are out there watching us might be going, yes, you whippersnapper. But at my age, I'm not sure and then it's like, no, I am not going to use this as excuses.
Yeah.
I will see change. I will end up at the end of this with something different in my hands. And so forget about whether it's COVID. Just look at the fact of by the time the summer's over, or, by whatever it would be, it's picking these goals to say, okay, so I got to drop something out of my hands to make room for something.
Right. And that, again, is the essence of essentialism. Saying yes to something means you have to say no to something.
Yeah.
And if by default you don't make that choice, life will make that choice for you. If you say yes to all these things that take away from the goal of having a close relationship with your wife and kids, life will then therefore choose you're going to be distant from your family unless and a lot of times, unfortunately, we are creatures of habit where we don't change until the pain is so great that we are forced to change.
Come on. Yep. That's a word right there.
And sometimes the unfortunate thing is a heart attack, and if you survive, then you make changes, or divorce, and then you're like, okay, if I get remarried, I won't do that again. And we don't want to go through that. We want to make changes that better ourselves. And it's we know it scripturally. It says, choose this day, life and death, all these things. We know we have to make choices. And so often, we do sabotage ourselves. We sabotage our goals. We sabotage our dreams. So important, and that's where I think accountability is huge. When you have somebody that's with you on a journey, whether it's your wife, your husband, your best friend, whatever it would be, somebody that's there with you, going, "Hey, how you doing with your goals today? How you doing with,
Right.
you said reading the Bible." I think you were picking on me. Did you know that I was only 21 days behind my 1 year Bible reading?
No, I did not. Very good.
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up right now. I had a couple, you know, I was into another reading, and you miss your devotion for the day. Not that I wasn't doing devotions, I was just doing a different devotion. But accountability is huge, where somebody comes along and just says, "Hey, how you doing with this? You said this was a goal. You told me you wanted to do this. How you doing?" I'm not doing it to punish you. I'm doing it to help you. I'm doing it to keep you accountable.
And as husband and wife, we can sabotage each other. I mean, in the midst of
Sure.
it, not even meaning to, right? And that's that sense of deciding, okay, we're going to walk together on this. I'm going to be your helper. You're going to be my helper, and we're going to see change. I mean, it said. So, I've heard people say, "I don't know how I got here," but usually that's a negative thing, right? When somebody says, "I don't know how I got here," they're usually talking about something negative that's happened.
That's
They
so
don't.
true.
It's not usually the fact that, well, I don't know how I got there. I'm a millionaire, in
Right.
there,
My
and
marriage is amazing. I don't know how I got here.
most people that if you're in that, I don't know how I got 4 houses, just all of a sudden it's there. Well, no, most of them could talk you about the journey and the hard decisions and the fact that, what, if I'm going to be financially fiscal, even like, the journey that we've been on, even for Karen and I, since coming to Antioch, is that, right from the very beginning, we started doing Dave Ramsey and these things. And man, we had to change some things. Jay, we had to sit there and decide, man, this is hard.
Yeah.
And when we didn't feel like it, that's when we'd, he's like, almost you sabotage, in the midst of it. But it's like, it had to become that for us, that being debt free was more important than having Tim Hortons the 5 times in the week. And nothing wrong with doing that if you're in that place where you say, well, that's what I choose is my thing, right? But you had to do, and Karen had to kick my butt at times, and we had to go, you know what, this is our goal, and we can't cheap it out because it'll take us longer, right? And there can be miracles in the middle of it. There can be all these things that happen, but there's so many choices in the midst of all of this.
I remember when I think it was during a Dave Ramsey course, I believe. I remember sitting down and calculating, okay, if I got a coffee and a donut every day, 5 days a week, maybe 6, I calculated it and I realized that's the cost of a trip to Mexico. And I love getting away.
Right.
And so then it's a choice, right? Do I want coffee? Do I want to go to Mexico? For me, that's an easy answer. I've never been, needing to do that, but I thought that's so simple to fall into that. And I'm picking up my kids all the time from McDonald's.
Right.
And the temptation to buy McDonald's or Tim Hortons because they're next to each other.
Right.
It's always there.
Right.
And my kids get a
and when you become debt free, and when you've done, I mean, and it's like, it's not that things don't happen, and we've been debt free and then had situations come, and okay, we're going to work at it again, because it's not something that's an event, it's a lifestyle now.
Yeah.
And that's really hard.
And you may, like you're saying, you may go, okay, so we can afford to do it now, but now you got, okay, is it healthy to do?
Right.
You just continue to go back to those essential things that you're trying to do. And I was joking around. I was going to say, I was watching a movie last night with Mark Wahlberg, and I thought, man, this guy's in good shape. He's got to be younger than I am. And I found out he's 3 years older than I am. I'm like, oh man, and it comes down to he's made choices. Obviously, his life is a little different and probably can basically do that all day and get paid for it. But
Sure, sure.
you just realize that this man had made choices to get into that kind of shape. And whether it's that or somebody has totally debt free and has 4 houses now, I love what you said. You don't just fall into that. You don't wake
Right.
up one day and go, I can't believe I'm here. That's a good word.
Yeah, like, I mean, Pastor Gary didn't sit there and all of a sudden say, "Wow, how did we get this church?"
Yeah.
Or we didn't sit there and say, "Wow, I mean, how did we get 17 years in Haiti?" I mean, that surprises me.
Where did all these kids come from?
It just
Ghana.
doesn't right. That doesn't happen. It is a choice, and I
Yeah.
think that that's one of the things we're trying to encourage people, even over this summer, is to say, okay, so let's not just let the summer disappear. Let's make some choices. Maybe we got to eliminate some things to say. If my choice is the fact that I want to spend quality time, with my daughter, or, I want to spend some quality time with my grandkids, right? We're going to go out and just do some. Well, then you have to decide these things. And so you really inspired me today when you were talking about that, because I went, you know what? I don't think I have that plan. I just want COVID to be done,
Yeah.
and that's not the way to begin to do. And so it's like, okay, I need to capitalize. I mean, it sounds so simple, and some people at home might be going, okay, how is that? Why are we talking about this? But I think if you can get the simple ones, you can start to work on the other ones,
Yeah.
right?
For me, I don't know about you. Summer actually is the hardest time for me to be disciplined. There's just, you think I often go, well, summertime, I can get outside and I can jog. It'll be better weather. I can open the garage door and exercise. It's funny that when summer to me, I often have to fight this. It's summer. I remember summer vacation. It's like built into you. School's done. You're on summer vacation. When you become an adult, you don't really have the same schedule, but at times it can feel that way. And so I am having to go, okay, I got to make better choices because I've been a little lax in my goals lately. I got to get up earlier. I got to, summertime, the sun's out, right? Later. So you stay up naturally
Right,
later, which means you get up later. All
right,
these things play into it. And
right,
we can look at those people and go, man, I wish I had their life. Well, you wouldn't have their life, or you could have their life if you made the choices that they made. And again, it comes down to they sat down at one point and they said, what is essential? And what am I going to, again, it's doing less, but doing better with the less that you're doing. So you make these things a priority instead of trying to do it all. You make priorities and do those priorities well.
right, right. Because burnout can be just around the corner when we're trying to do everything, right?
Yeah,
Because we could approach this in a way that says, okay, so what do I need to do better right now, right? That's not what essentialism is. It's not about what I do better. It's about how do I give myself time so that I can apply that to it. And I will get better at that. But if I don't make the choices to not do something or to decide what's important and value, I will find myself in burnout because I'm trying to do
totally.
everything, right?
Yeah,
And I see I'm a little bit guilty in the sense that I am a doer. It took me a long time spiritually to begin to understand, even though I grew up in the church, about what it's like to rest in the Lord and to be his son. And now I got that, and I'm not perfect, but I got that down, but I'm still one who loves to do.
right. And I think there's a part of that we're built to do,
Sure.
but to do what?
Right.
That's the
Right.
question. Just to read a few things from kind of highlights from the book with what we're talking about. It says the wisdom of life consists in the elimination of non-essentials. So I look at my life really quickly and I know I can get lost in a TV series. And before you know it, you've watched 8 hours of a movie in a couple days. And, that's nothing wrong with it. But if you have a goal, that's a non-essential, or if you've just gone too far, it doesn't mean you take out everything that's fun in your life. But if I'm like, okay, I got to get this project done by this day, but I'm watching 8 hours of Netflix, I'm doing a non-essential instead of the essential, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they say this is a great question to ask. It says, is this the very most important thing I should be doing with my time and resources right now?
Right.
I think that's a great question.
We are all so guilty of this. Those guys, everybody that's at home right now, hope you're not looking at us going, okay, so they must have all this down,
Oh gosh.
because, we find ourselves going, where did I just, we like to use the word, where did I lose these hours? We didn't lose them. We just spent them somewhere.
Yeah.
You
You made a
always
choice.
you always spend, in those things. And I find myself going, oh my, I have just spent, this amount of time. And then you look over and right now, one of the things I'd love you, because you're better than I am at this, but you tend to be a finisher. And it's really on your heart to be a finisher. And that, not that I can finish, I do finish. I believe in excellence, but that sense of sometimes that I get overwhelmed with too many things and then I'm not finishing something.
Mm,
That is really, to me,
yeah.
something where in society right now, and even in the body of Christ, that we have to, we talk about the fact of the sense of transformational status, right? Something actually coming to an end. We're learning something and it's actually we've got it.
Yeah.
But that takes discipline. That takes pushing through. So how do you begin to do those things? What do you do?
I think
I know you're not perfect. I know you're not perfect,
to be
but
completely honest, one of the greatest things is listening to my wife. She's a great reminder to go, hey, can we finish this project? And Karen, I'm sure, is the same. She's great to help keep me on track because I love projects. I love, um, one of the greatest things that I remember hearing going, okay, that helps. It was uh, Louis Giglio talking about how he loves to create projects and his wife would come along and finish them.
mm,
So in their realm, he was talking about the church realm, not like projects at home, but he would like to get conferences started and she would come along and kind of make it all happen. I think for me, I've actually, it's interesting you say that because I've really had to learn to declare that over my life. I am a finisher.
mm,
And I've had to learn to prioritize going, okay, if I want this done, what is it going to look like? When am I going to get it done? And I've succeeded and I've failed. I literally have things that I said I would do when I bought my house and we moved in that I still haven't done because
mm.
you get comfortable. You
Right,
get
sure.
used to living in this, well, nobody else sees it. And the funny thing is everybody else sees it except for you because you're so used to it. But everybody else walks in and goes, "Hey, I noticed your baseboards aren't done." Shh, 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 don't say that. So, I've been working at that for many years too, trying to prioritize, and I feel like I'm learning every day. I had set a goal to learn Spanish when COVID started. That was the thing I really wanted to do, and life gets busy, and you put it away for a while, and before you know it, it's a month, it's a year, and now I look and I go, man, if I would have kept up with that, I probably would be able to speak Spanish today at a decent level, but I can start tomorrow again. That's the beautiful
Right.
thing, that we can start tomorrow fresh. If that really, and after reading this, I have to sit down and go, okay, is that really essential? Do I want to make that essential? Do I want to take hours of my week and put it into that project of learning Spanish? And if the answer is yes, then I'm going to have to learn to say no to something else.
Yeah, I think it's really important too that we realize that we're never too old for this, and I don't
Yeah.
think we're ever too, we've ever got this down. I think this is a life choice continuously to sit there and go, okay, where have I let the non-essentials take over right now? I'm living for the non-essentials.
Yeah.
I'm doing all of these things, and whether that's in finances, whether that's in my spiritual choices, whether that's in the sense of my education choices, all of these things you used to, the inference there was sacrifice.
Mm.
Sacrifice actually brings about, change. It brings about, and if we think that we can do this without sacrifice, it's just not going
That's
to
right.
happen.
Yep.
You know,
Absolutely. And here's another quote I wanted to share too. It says, if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will.
come on, yeah,
I thought, oh man, again, that's so
someone
true.
or something, yeah, for sure.
Someone or something. Absolutely. And you may think you're prioritizing, only to look back like I did. My Spanish is a great example of going, no, I didn't prioritize it. I had a good intention, and it was a goal and it was a good intention, but it did not lead to a destination. I didn't have, in the end, I probably, actually, I remember it was, I started it back in March when COVID hit and it was rainy and it was easy. You said sacrifice. It was
Right,
actually not a sacrifice. It was
right.
easy to be inside. I had all this extra time. We were in lockdown back then. Like, we weren't going anywhere. I remember going on the roads and it was like, there's nobody out here. And then we made something else essential. We made a project, my backyard project. And I can look back now and realize I couldn't do both.
Right.
One took over the other one. So without realizing it, my backyard project became the essential, and my Spanish lessons became non-essential. And so no, I'm okay with that in the sense that I'm glad I got my project done out back, or almost done. But if I really wanted to learn Spanish, it would have had to become a more of an essential thing.
Right. Right. And when we're talking about no matter how young, like, so if we go the fact of the other way, I've been talking a little bit about no matter how old we are, this applies. No matter how young you are, this applies.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I mean, so, I mean, everybody says this, I know, but there are things that if I would have just accomplished or just, realized what was essential, I don't think I would have been as stressed out at different times in my life.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that I want to get with this essentialism is not about the fact that this is the end all and be all, or that we're trying to say that this is, we believe that we're walking by the Spirit and we're walking with God, but there's just way too much stress sometimes because we've made things that are non-essential basically too important.
Yeah.
And I think that's, for me, is sitting down and going, okay, Rod, it's time again to look at this and go, what's got to go?
Yeah.
I want to be healthy. I want to be whole. I want to, like, R3 is about body, soul, and spirit, and again, the good stuff doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And at the end of the summer, like you said, where do we want to be? And it's only 2 months, but I'll tell you, you can do a lot in 2 months. You asked me what's essential. For me right now, obviously the spiritual is essential. Trying to get up and do my daily devotions and not just read the word, but actually connect with God. And that's such a difference. You could read the word and that's so
Yeah.
important, but you can also take the time to connect with God and to pray and to just rest in His presence. For me, essential this summer is I asked my kids, what are some things that you want to do? And so I want to make sure that we get those things in. And I have some desires in my heart and making sure those are priority. And again, I have gone through a summer where I had all these ideas. And at the end of the summer, I still had all those ideas. And so it comes down to prioritizing. You could say, man, I want to be so spiritually strong. And I've listened to people that are like, I've read a book a day. And I'm like, a book a day, man. If I could do a book a month. So that's going to be my goal, a book a month. And then something else becomes essential and that becomes non-essential. It's constantly evaluating what is important and not just making flippant goals going, okay, so if this
Yeah.
is going to be essential, it's got to become essential.
Yeah, that's a really good one, not making flippant goals, because you find that, like I say, we only can do so much.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, so, like, I don't know if you've ever been like this or not, but you're like, somebody starts talking about something, starts talking about an idea and going, I like that.
Yeah. Ooh,
I want
good
to do
goal.
that. We should do that. That's really good. And it's like, it's great for them and it's worked great for them. But truthfully, I have to abandon something to begin to do this. And
Yeah.
so that's, I think, where I'm going, Lord, I need your help more in this, the sense of that discipline to know, no, I've got my essentials. Not that they can't shift, right? But
Yeah.
it's like, I can't let somebody else's great idea begin to, send me off on now the fact that I've got a brand new thing that I think is important. And really, it wasn't, because it'll fizzle out in a little while, right?
It's like those words that we would do, what is the one word? And I remember the one year we actually had everybody write their word on the board. And I remember going, oh, that's a good word. Ooh, I like that word. And before you know, you've got 20 words for the year.
Yeah.
19 of them are not yours, but you
Yeah.
like
It's
the
like,
word. Right?
those things that go around, you see them and go, which words do you see in this puzzle and whatnot, and,
Yeah.
and everything else for that. And someone will write that. I like that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Right. But that's not who I am. Right.
Yeah.
And, one of the things, even when we talk about ministry, we all love the fact that at Antioch, we support, food banks, right? And that it's important to us. So we give on a regular basis to the food bank, because that's important. That's really important to us. But that's not an essential ministry for us. It's essential to
Yeah.
support the ministry,
Yeah.
but it's not an essential ministry. And if we, even, I remember talking about this with Pastor Gary years ago, that it's a great ministry, but it's not ours. And
Yeah.
if we get caught up in this, us doing it, so trying to plan it, now we're going to have it on our upstairs, or we're going to get sidetracked from what it is that God has asked us.
Yep.
Again, it's a great thing and a good
Yep.
thing, but it's not our thing.
Especially, if it's not our thing and we have somebody else doing that thing, then the best thing we can do is just support it.
Right.
I remember a church locally going through, they actually brought in professionals for, I believe it was an entire month, if not longer, to sort through, because they were doing so many things, and they got to a point where I don't think they were doing anything as well as they would have liked, but they were doing a lot of things. And by the end, they had gone through and they spent hours looking at what their purpose was and going, well, if that's your purpose, this doesn't belong. That's not what you're called to do. And that's hard. But
Yeah.
if you want to get to doing it, what you're called to do well, you have to, again, say no to
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah. And it's hard
No.
when it's something that maybe you really like, but in your season, it's not what's essential. It's not going to
Yeah.
get you where you need to go.
And you think of Jesus, how often he had to say no to one person and yes to another person. And it's also interesting. And again, we fully believe in trying to feed the poor and trying to be the resource, supporting other people that are the resource. But if you look at the life of Jesus, he stuck to what he was called to do. He
Yeah.
didn't try to get a food bank going. He came to heal the sick. He cast out demons. He came to make people whole, and that's what he spent his life doing, preaching and showing people the kingdom.
Well, it's a great example, because Jesus, so everybody wanted him to take over, like get the Romans out,
Yeah.
right? To take over, that to do this now, and this is what we're in. You've come? Is it now, Jesus? Is it now, Jesus? And and
Not my priority.
he had to be focused,
Yeah,
right? I mean, that'll happen one day, but that's not what this is about right now, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Rod, I've enjoyed the R3s, and we'll see in the fall if we pick it up or if God has us pick up something else. I really hope that people, you can always go back and watch them. I think so many topics that we've covered and tried to, we've covered from sleep to vitamins to mental health to essentials to, Joy came on about putting the spirit first and the body and soul follows and all the different things. There's so much good material. I hope everybody's enjoyed it as much as we have. But believe it or not, an hour goes by really quickly. And so I appreciate you coming on again tonight, Rod. Any final thoughts for you?
It's just time to put it into practice. Right.
Isn't that the key, though?
Yep.
It's so often that and I was thinking, man, as a church, even if we could move forward and go, what if we took let me close with this. Interesting fact I read today. That word, we use the word priority, and then we often use the word, what are our priorities? And I was reading today in Essentialism, that word priority came in 1400.
Hmm.
And so for, 500, 600 years, the word priority, or 500, it was a singular word. And then in the 1900s, they began to use the word as a plural. So
Wow.
priority only meant one thing. There was no one, like, they never had the concept that you could have priorities, because it's actually an oxymoron, because you can only have one priority. And so we have this concept now of multiple priorities, and he was saying that one organization had P1, P2, P3, P4, P5. And he's like, how do you have more than one priority? It's a singular word. We've made it plural. And so I think, man, as a church, if we could really go, what is that thing? What is that thing that this year, and everything gets put into practice to that one thing.
Right.
I don't know about you. I can, in a given week, not only the message that I prepare or the message that I listen to from you or Pastor Gary or a guest speaker, podcasts, social media, a book that I'm reading, books that I'm reading, articles that are set. Like, we're so inundated. And I often think, how much of that did I even put into practice? Such good information.
Right.
But did I take any of it and put it into practice?
Yeah. Can I encourage everybody with this as you just wrap up now that don't try to do 22 as we talk about essentials. I want to do 22 things over the summer.
Right.
If this is something you're going, you know what, I need to do something this truly, like you said. So that's a really great thing with that word. Try the one thing.
Yeah.
Try to make it a priority. And so over this summer, if it's the fact that I'm gonna, make sure I tell my wife I love her every day, give her a kiss every day, whatever it would be, if it's something for you that, whatever it is, just try one,
Yeah.
and let's see how many of us, and it's not perfection, but it's trying to bring change and transformation in our lives by the time the summer's done.
Last example, then we'll close. I had to make a decision early on that when my kids called at work, what would I do? And there's an appropriate time and there's inappropriate times. And I had to teach them that. But I'm amazed that when I decided to go, you know what, if my priority is to become close with my kids, but every time they call to tell me something, I say no, then I'm going to sabotage my priority. And I really love the fact that my kids, even today, FaceTime me to tell me news, tell me what they got a mark in. And I'm so thankful that back then I had the wisdom to make that a priority, and I'm reaping the benefits now. But like you said, it's never too late to start it now or to make that a priority.
Right.
And if it's your entire summer to go, you know what, I've drifted from my wife, I'm going to make it a priority to find ways to spend time.
Right.
That you would reap in 2 months the benefits that would change your life.
Yep.
Absolutely. So,
Yep.
guys, thank you for jumping on and everybody being a part of R3 and for taking time to hear us ramble at times. I've had fun. Thanks, Rod, for coming on, and all our guest speakers that we've had to come on. And we have a summer schedule that will be coming out in the next few weeks as we see things open up with COVID. And we're excited for the future. Super excited, as you said at the beginning, super excited. So, guys, thank you for joining us, and we will see you at our last Prayer Essentials as well next Wednesday. So we will see you for that. All right, have a good one. Take care.